Les questions que mes générations se posent sont les suivantes, si je peux me résumer.
Ibrahim Traore, Burkina Faso's youngest leader, is charting a similar course to the late Thomas Sankara, who was tragically killed for distancing himself from the West. Traore is determined to elevate Burkina Faso's stature by lessening Western influence and forging alliances with non-Western nations. His ambition is to transform Burkina Faso into a self-sufficient, thriving, and formidable nation by leveraging its indigenous resources. Yet his strategy has raised alarms in Western circles, as they will be deprived of the natural resources they have been exploiting at affordable prices. Traore's stance echoes the circumstances that led to Thomas Sankara's demise. Traore is not just following Sankara's lead, he is going even further by challenging and intimidating the West. He has formed alliances with countries that the West considers enemies, making him appear to be the bravest and most fearless African leader. Recently, a Russian delegation met with Burkina Faso's interim president, Ibrahim Traore, to discuss possible military cooperation. This meeting follows Traore's previous talks with Russian President Vladimir Putin during the Russia-Africa Summit in St. Petersburg last July. The Russian delegation was led by Deputy Defense Minister Yunus Bekiev-Kurov. These developments have brought Burkina Faso's relations with Moscow into the spotlight. This is especially true after the country expelled French troops earlier this year, leading to speculation about deepening security ties with Russia. This alliance with Russia is a clear signal that Burkina Faso is prepared to choose allies based on the benefits they offer, regardless of whether they are perceived as enemies of the West. Directly allying with Russia is seen as challenging the West, but it reinforces Burkina Faso's commitment to its own interests. Burkina Faso and Russia recently held a meeting to discuss potential cooperation, particularly in military aspects. The countries deliberated on training Burkinabe officer cadets and officers at various levels, which could include pilot training in Russia. However, the official statement did not confirm whether Russian military trainers would be dispatched to Burkina Faso. Previously, most of Burkina Faso's soldiers were trained by France, which had a significant influence on the country's military. However, with Russia's involvement, this dynamic may change. In July, Burkina Faso's transitional president, Captain Ibrahim Traore, attended the second Russia-Africa Summit in St. Petersburg, seeking support from Russia to combat jihadist attacks. In March, the country received weapons and attack helicopters from Russia. The talks in St. Petersburg aim to forge new economic and military agreements to address Burkina Faso's security and development, with a focus on deliberate and assertive cooperation from Moscow. However, some speculate that there may be undisclosed agreements that could enable Russia to bypass international sanctions, particularly following its divergence from European markets. Burkina Faso has officially declared Russia as its strategic ally, which sends a direct message to the West that it will cooperate and make deals with Russia, despite the earlier demand of condemning it in the Ukraine war. This move has raised concerns about Burkina Faso's relationship with Moscow, particularly as anti-French sentiments have grown in some parts of the region. In February, Burkina Faso expelled French troops after terminating an agreement that had allowed France to combat armed groups in the country since 2013. According to a recent televised interview, Traore, a military leader in Burkina Faso, revealed that his country does not have to pick sides in the ongoing conflict. Rather, it will engage with every country. Traore mentioned that Burkina Faso has strategic allies and new forms of cooperation, citing Russia as an example of a strategic ally. Western nations are now concerned about Russia's growing influence in the Sahel and nearby regions. However, Burkina Faso's military leaders have signed an agreement with Russia to build a nuclear power plant to bolster the country's electricity supply. This agreement is part of Burkina Faso's goal to achieve 95% electricity access in urban areas and 50% in rural areas by 2030. Burkina Faso primarily generates electricity from biofuels like charcoal and wood, with oil products accounting for 1/3 of the total energy supply. To address this issue, the country is now looking to nuclear energy to meet its energy needs and those of neighboring nations. While South Africa is the only African nation currently commercially producing nuclear power, more countries on the continent are gradually moving in this direction. Russia is providing assistance to Egypt in constructing a nuclear power plant and also signed a deal to build power plants in Nigeria. Despite an increase in access to energy in sub-Saharan Africa in recent years, the region still contends with low electrification rates, with over 50% of the population lacking access to electricity. Burkina Faso's decision to invest in nuclear power reflects its determination to address this issue and meet the energy demands of its people. Ibrahim Traore, the military leader of Burkina Faso, has emphasized the potential role of North Korea in enhancing the country's security and overall development. Traore acknowledged that Burkina Faso's military still relies on weaponry received from North Korea in 1985, citing the significant capabilities possessed by North Korea. The resumption of diplomatic ties with North Korea is seen as a significant demonstration of power, as many countries in the world do not have relations with North Korea due to Western influence. Traore clarified that the weapons, including heavy armaments, are actively utilized by Burkina Faso's armed forces, and they aim to acquire more to support their ongoing efforts. This development follows Burkina Faso's announcement of an agreement in March to appoint a North Korean ambassador, potentially opening doors for weapons trade between the two nations. This agreement represents the pinnacle of Burkina Faso-North Korean relations, building upon historical ties such as Thomas Sankara's visit to North Korea in the past. Traore emphasizes that Burkina Faso prioritizes its own interests and will collaborate with any ally or nation that supports them in their ongoing struggle for security and development. It is important to note that the United Nations Resolution 2270 prohibits weapons trade to and from North Korea. The means through which Burkina Faso intends to import arms from North Korea remains uncertain, but it signals the country's determination to assert its independence and make choices that align with its national interests. This highlights the principle of sovereignty, asserting that African countries have the right to shape their foreign policy independently. Ibrahim Traore's approach symbolizes a departure from past African leaders who may have been influenced by external forces, instead focusing on Burkina Faso's independence and diversification of allies. He aims to revive the legacy of Thomas Sankara, who championed similar ideals but was tragically assassinated. Thomas Sankara, often referred to as Africa's Che Guevara, implemented radical reforms during his time in power. These reforms included efforts to eliminate foreign debt, achieve food self-sufficiency, reduce Western influence, enhance literacy rates, empower women, and promote social equality. Sankara's vision for Burkina Faso was cut short by a coup in 1987. Captain Ibrahim Traore recognizes the challenges he faces in bringing about radical changes and concentrates on consolidating power to ensure his own safety. Traore has declared that security takes precedence over elections, given the ongoing threat of jihadist violence in Burkina Faso. His commitment to security aligns with his initial goal of bolstering security within 2 to 3 months of assuming power. Furthermore, Traore aims to address the economic paradox faced by Africa, where the continent possesses abundant natural resources but remains economically poor. He seeks to understand and overcome the resource curse phenomenon, wherein countries rich in natural resources often experience poor economic performance. Traore plans to reclaim Burkina Faso's gold mines to ensure that the benefits derived from these resources primarily enrich the people of Burkina Faso. By challenging the West, Ibrahim Traore is doing something unprecedented that the West needs to be habituated to. Therefore, the path can be quite tricky. However, The African leaders striving to enact substantial positive changes in their nations often encounter grave repercussions, which can include their removal from power or even assassination. Leaders such as Muammar Gaddafi of Libya and Thomas Sankara of Burkina Faso assumed leadership roles with the intent of challenging the prevailing social, political, and economic structures in their respective countries. Their motivations stemmed from a desire to institute profound alterations and address persistent issues like poverty, corruption, and foreign influence. These policies often disrupted entrenched power structures and vested interests, challenging the status quo. As these leaders attempted to implement their reforms, they encountered resistance from a range of influential entities, including domestic elites, foreign governments, and multinational corporations. They were assassinated because the reforms championed by leaders like Gaddafi and Sankara posed a substantial threat to the established order. Their objectives included curtailing the influence of foreign powers and multinational corporations over their country's resources and economies, a direct challenge to the interests of these external actors. Nobody had expected that these leaders, loved by their people, would be made to look a threat. The West used its covert tactics to create opposition to these leaders, escalating to the point of violent overthrows or assassinations. Gaddafi was removed and killed during the Libyan civil war in 2011, with the help of Western powers. Thomas Sankara was assassinated in a coup led by his close associate Blaise Compaoré in 1987, with suspicions of external involvement. The experiences of these leaders serve as a warning to African leaders who might want to bring radical changes to their countries. They might be afraid of the severe consequences that could follow, such as being overthrown, exiled, or even killed. Despite knowing this, Ibrahim Traore is determined to make Burkina Faso independent again and to bring prosperity to its people. He expelled Western troops and made it difficult for the West to stage his replacement or assassination. He is also forging alliances with countries that the West views as a threat and is challenging the West without fear. Do you think Ibrahim Traore will be successful in breaking the West's influence in Burkina Faso and Africa? Or will he be secretly compromised and the West will regain control? Share your thoughts on how Ibrahim Traore can become a stronger force in the region. Is allying with powerful countries like Russia and China a good strategy? For more content like this, make sure to subscribe to our channel and hit the bell icon for updates. We deliver videos on topics that deserve more attention. Thanks for watching, and keep an eye out for our upcoming video.